You're listening to The Play Bouch. Welcome back, everyone. We are talking about Monster Hunter Rise and Sunbreak, its DLC. I'm joined once again by my ever-so-wonderful partner, Nicholas. How you doing, bud?
I'm okay. How you doing, Pete?
Yeah, I'm all right. Let's dive right in. But before we do, please remember to subscribe, like, and leave a comment and all that good stuff. So yes, Monster Hunter Rise. We're going to sort of try to split it up into two different categories. So we've got the base game, and then we've got Sunrise, which is the DLC. We're veterans of Monster Hunter World, and it's been an experience, to say the least. I kind of, lost my mind a little bit with the, getting through all that and, dealing with some of the toughest monsters and boss fights I've ever faced in a computer game, period.
We should say, Pete, very quickly, we're not veterans of the series. This is our first, I guess World was our first game and then Rise was our second game. So I suppose in the grand scheme of things, we are only 2 games in compared to some people, I suppose. You've played them since the old Nintendo days.
Yeah. So. But having an achievement of, destroying every monster that we came across in World is actually quite a feat. And, we're part of that 1% group that have done so. So I guess, first of all, we should probably talk about the positives and negatives or whatever of Monster Hunter Rise compared with Monster Hunter World.
I think the first thing I'd like to say is that we should also... We'll judge it fairly because they both are on the Xbox. Which is where we both played them. But it does have to be said that World was developed for the consoles, and Monster Hunter Rise was originally developed for the Switch, which obviously is a less powerful machine and also mobile. So that when we are judging them, we are going to judge them as an Xbox game, but I'm not going to forget that there is limitations imposed on Monster Hunter Rise because it was developed as a Switch game.
Also, Monster Hunter World was kind of more orientated towards the Western market.
Yes, yeah.
Whereas Rise is more orientated towards the Eastern market. So yeah.
Yeah, it was designed so people can play it on their way to work on their Switches. That's one of the big reasons it was designed for. So that's got to be taken into account. It is a smaller game in scale and in design. It is.
Yeah.
So that does have to be taken into account when putting them up against each other.
Yeah. So, I'll start off with the good parts of Monster Hunter Rise. The combat mechanics seem to have improved in that. I know you don't really like this, but the ability to swap out weapon skills and change the style of how you attack with any given weapon. Me playing as the dual blades, I was able to sort of because you've got 2 loadouts basically, so I was able to sort of switch out between a ground-based attack style and an air-based attack style. So I could switch to the red scroll and just sort of have all my attacks be up in the air and stuff like that, or I could just stick with the blue scroll and just have everything ground-based. So I really liked that. But I know that you weren't so much of a fan of that.
It depends on the weapon. I think it depends on the weapon. It depends on the skills you've got. Depends on your playstyle. There's lots of different ways to look at it. No, I didn't love it because I think it didn't need. They didn't need to add it. There were a couple of skills where you could use that and take advantage of it. I know one skill in between was very powerful, which gave you back sharpness, but that didn't really help with my bow, which I'll be talking a lot about the bow in this review because that's my primary weapon.
Yeah.
So I can see from your vantage point, you got more out of it than I did. Could I have delved more into it? Yeah. Would it have made a massive difference for me? Not as a bow. I don't think it would have made a massive difference. Small, very small difference as a bow, in my opinion.
Yeah, so you ran with 2 different weapon styles. You had, 3 really. You had the bow, then you had insect glaive, and then the hunting horn, right?
Yeah, and I played the hunting horn a lot more than I ever intended. I probably just about played as the bow more, because whenever I played solo, I always played as the bow.
Yeah,
But whenever I played co-op, depending who I was playing with and depending on the difficulty of the monster, sometimes I would go as the hunting horn because I could be support and buff everyone up, and sometimes that made more sense. In the end, I played the hunting horn way more than I ever intended.
yeah.
It's okay. I don't like it as much as the bow, but it has its good parts as well.
And we'll be getting onto the bow in a minute. And yeah, I only really ran with the dual blades. I experimented with, the great sword, and heavy bow gun and something else I can't remember, hammer I think. But I just felt so much affinity with the dual blades. I felt like that was me. The fact that it was the fastest weapon type, and the fact that
I think the dual blades, and I can't go by experience. I can only go by stuff you've told me. But I think the dual blades are in a very good position in Rise, more so than, I won't say every other weapon, because I bet you there's probably other weapons. But I know there's other weapons that are not as good as the dual blade. So it's obviously one of the more powerful ones. And why would you? I suppose why would you go backwards if you look at it that way?
Well, it was a basic sort of, it was an all rounder in terms of, like, it was not, if you tweaked things, if you had the right setup and the right build, it was bordering on OP. But there was I think the sheer fact that you could dodge out the way, and like be lightning quick at it, was a boon, definitely for me.
You had more mobility than most other weapons, didn't you?
Yeah. Yeah, I found the monsters in the game, I won't say a lot easier, but I found it easier generally overall than perhaps you or Alan did. Alan, who ran with the longsword, and was dedicated to the longsword, weren't you, darling? He's going to laugh at that. I can hear him already. So yeah, I mean, like the web, I do enjoy the different weapons and all of that, and sort of changing things up. And maybe for Monster Hunter Wilds, I might sort of take on 2 weapons again, but we'll see about that. So you have beef with the bow in terms of balancing in general, right?
I find the bow. It feels to me, and I know that there's going to be some players who are better players than me, who are bow players. We've seen some of them on YouTube who can dodge every attack and destroy the hardest monsters in 3 minutes. I've seen it. You've seen it. We know it can be done.
Yeah.
I'd imagine that can be done with every weapon to a certain degree if you're that good. That's what I'd say. I'm not that good. That's my ego. My pretty little ego can handle it. But I also am not a bad player either. And I had an easier time in World than I did with Sunbreak. Now, I say Sunbreak and not Rise, because in Rise, I did have a very easy time with the bow. Similar to what you're talking about with the dual blades. In Sunrise and the monsters in Sunrise, I danced around them. I danced footsteps around them, which is kind of what you're meant to do. The bow is meant to be an elegant weapon. It's about dodging. It's about counterattacking and like dodging and strafing, and it's like a musical instrument almost. It's like you're dancing around a monster. In Sunbreak, where every monster was on steroids, so it became a much harder prospect for me to dance around the monsters, because if I took one hit, which is fine because I'm not a perfect player like these, like some of these speedrunners, I do get hit, not loads, but when I do get hit, I get hit so bloody hard that I'm immediately in massive danger. So it becomes a much more of a risk reward thing, and when I get caught, I get killed more often than not. I am sometimes one-shotted, even though I've got the highest defense I can get, because in case people don't know the mechanics, I know that some people know this, but if the bow is classed as a ranged weapon, and thus it takes a percentage more damage. I believe it's something like 20%, but that 20% does make a hell of a bit of difference. See, if me and Pete are standing next to each other, for example, Pete might be able to take 3 or 4 hits. My character, I probably can only take 2 hits before I die. And that makes a bloody big difference. And with the bow, they want you to go much closer than you would expect with the bow. So in a lot of times, I'm nearly as close as a melee character is. Maybe not quite. I'm a couple of feet back, maybe. But when you're dealing with these big monsters, you might as well be as next to them because their attacks are going to hit you, even if you're a couple of feet, right? So I'm in melee range of the monsters nearly as much as a melee character is. So I get hit and I'm immediately in more trouble. So it made the game much harder than I felt it should be. But I will say that there's an argument could be made that if I want to have played a less aggressive style, further away from the monsters, I would have done less damage. I would have had much less fun. But an argument could be made that maybe I wouldn't put myself in as much danger. And I guess that's a playstyle decision of mine. And I guess only I've got myself to answer for that.
I just find it a little bit weird that as a bow, you have to be sort of mid-range to close range to sort of do any real damage. That doesn't make sense. There's a lot about the bow situation which doesn't make sense to me and how they've done it. It's like,
without boring you too much with the actual mechanics, Pete, very quickly, there's 3 different bow types. Technically, it's short, medium, and long range. They're not called that, but that's what it is. The most damaging of the 3 is the short range. And you've got these things called close quarters coating, which gives you a buff to damage. So the game encourages you to be close up with the short range. But you don't have to. But if you want to do as much damage, and also the way I play with there's a counter-attack dodge, which gives me generous iframes, a wide dodge so I can get out of the way, and good for repositioning. And I also do damage with my counters. I do like a spin attack, which I can do decent damage. So it all adds up, and it's a very fun playstyle, and I loved playing it. But as the game went on and the monsters got more and more vicious, it just became more and more dangerous. And unless you're somebody like these super players we've seen, who can dodge every single attack, then I just found myself getting hit, and then there goes 3/4 of my health. Most monsters would do that much damage to me. And then I'd be down to 1/4 health, and then, it was kind of panic stations. And it just felt that every battle I had, I was always up against it. The fact that I beat some of them, I'm quite happy with myself, because I never had what I'd ever call I never had an easy ride, really, with any of them, except maybe 1 or 2 monsters where the bow did excel against certain monsters. But when I went to the glaive, which was like my 3rd weapon, I didn't play enough of it as I wanted to. But when I went to my glaive, I immediately felt much more powerful, because I could take the same kind of damage that Pete could take. And because I was playing as the glaive, obviously I had not as much ground mobility as Pete's character has. I didn't have the movement speed, but I had the ability to jump over attacks and jump around, and a different kind of mobility. So had I played the whole game with the glaive, I probably would have a much easier time of the game. Yeah, I like playing as a bow, but that's my decision. But I know, as I said, Pete, I know there's going to be some people who play the bow who are going to tell me to get good. I can already see some of them, and that's fair enough. Maybe I wasn't flexible enough to
flexible.
Play. Yeah, flexible enough to play as further back with the bow as maybe you should do. That's not how I want to play it.
It's the issue is, I do think it's unfair that they should have given you more of a sort of a natural armor rating boost. Like, it's the fact that you're so like a glass cannon is a little bit sort of unfair, and I do think it needs another look at from the developers, and hopefully
the bow can put out some serious damage. You've seen it in the speedrun, guys.
Yeah,
the bow can put out some serious damage.
But you have to be right up the monster's arse, and without the defense rating, it's really not fair. I mean, like, we ran a similar builds in terms of defense. We were both at sort of 1100, 1200.
There was never more than one tier, I suppose. Well, maybe like 80 or so defense. There was never more than that between us for most of the game.
And, I could take a lot more hits than you could, and you would sort of, I know I was right up there in the monster's eyeball, twatting it, but and you were literally, we're talking like, feet a few feet away from me.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Anyway, let's move on to something else that's a little bit more positive. They
Mhm.
changed the way they give us decorations from World to Rise, which they're craftable now instead of being dropped randomly via quest rewards.
But they shifted the RNG, didn't they, from the decorations in World? They've shifted it so the talismans is the
Yes, it's the
RNG now.
talismans. Yeah. Which is fine. I do like that. I'm not sure I like an RNG system anyway. I think that they could just sort of be a little bit more generous and say, look, you can build talismans and decorations, but you need the right materials, and I don't really like RNG. I would say just keep RNG with the monster material drops as rewards, etc., rather
Well,
than
what they did is, and I guess they feel that they've got to put this system in to keep people going. But to be honest, I mean, until you get to the end game, you're going to keep going anyway, because in this game, they obviously the talismans are RNG, but then they added even more RNG later on. So when you get right to the end and you start doing these curio crafting, especially on the armor pieces, it becomes all randomness because you can
yeah,
buff armor with new skills or take skills away. So it becomes complete lottery. So they added different types of RNG for different things. And what they
yeah,
could have done is they could have just made the talismans normal, or maybe that you can create any talisman. But maybe the slots are RNG a little bit. Do you know what I mean? But not wasn't total RNG. So they could have just not bothered and just left the RNG just for the curio crafting at the end. They could have done that.
yeah. There's an issue with all of that curio stuff, which
Mm.
which we'll get to. But yeah, they made a good decision with having the decorations as craftable, and I just think they need to change the talismans to be craftable as well, and just have, as you said, certain RNG things with
Well,
monster
I mean,
drops and
considering that to make most of the high level decorations, you needed the rare monster part anyway, which
yeah,
by
exactly,
itself was a 3% drop. So there was enough grinding already to get these rare monster parts.
yeah,
To make, what I mean, it's not like they just gave you the decorations, you just made them easily, went poof. No, normally, especially the high level decorations, you had to get the rare monster parts, which was an RNG roll anyway. It was a 3%. I think the highest is 4% chance to get these materials you needed, and then
yeah,
you'd need to make multiple decorations because most of the skill levels there's multiple levels to each skill, so you'd need to get 3 or 4 of these rare monster parts. So that by itself was enough to keep you playing, right? To keep you hunting the same monster to get the parts.
yes. Which I question in terms of ways to get us still playing the game. So another thing which I liked is the graph. Well, it's better graphical fidelity because it's using the brand new RE engine, and in terms of Monster Hunter World's visuals to Monster Hunter Rise's visuals, the sharpness of it all, the resolution or whatever you like, I just thought was a lot better, and I appreciated that leap forward really.
It certainly ran better, I can tell you that. Performance wise, it ran better than World did.
Yeah,
Maybe because the maps were smaller, which they were. They were, and I suppose the maps was, there was less fauna and flora in the maps than there was in World,
yeah.
if you know what I mean. So it was easy for it to run.
The grass just looks terrible though. Like it's just
Mm.
sort of like thin sort of
Yeah, yeah.
strips, which is like, come on, man, that looks rubbish.
But
Anyway,
that comes back to it being on the Switch again, doesn't it? Though. So
yes, yeah. They didn't really port it very well to the Xbox. They could have done more work. I mean, it's
yeah,
fine. It runs fine and it runs great. But like they could have done more work. Um, so okay, so there's a lot of the cons outweigh the pros. I'm afraid in terms of this game compared to World. So the radio, the main thing okay, which really does my nut in, is the radial interaction system. So when you're in a quest and you're fighting a monster and you need to heal and you run away a little bit and you go to heal, sometimes it can take a few tries for it to trigger.
It does it when it wants to, Pete.
And the only reason I can see why that is that you're still finishing off a previous animation. So it's not going to trigger because maybe you're not standing still, right? And that's what it is, basically, is that it'll only trigger once you're not doing anything else, which doesn't really work in this kind of game. And it didn't work in World, and it doesn't work here. It looks like they just ported over that code and just moved on.
I think it did,
rather than just sort of like, tweaking it. I believe that the only real way to sort that out is to have what would be called ability queuing or animation queuing. So like you trigger it and the game knows that you want to heal, so it will heal when you've come to a stop, or the animation for you putting your weapon away is done, and it will automatically do it, because it is literally just a question of milliseconds, and milliseconds count in this game.
It does.
It's like some animations just take too long. It's like when you drink and you wipe your mouth afterwards. Don't have to wipe your mouth, mate. You're in the middle of a hunt. Why are you wiping your mouth?
That's why they've put in these skills. That's why you take quick eating or speed eating, whatever it's called, right? That's why you take it.
Yeah, but it's a useless skill.
But it's not, though, is it?
Well, it
should be a useless skill, but it's not, because it actually lessens the time that you're right. Right. Okay. So you take a big hit, right, and you got to have a heal. Speed eating, right, means that you are in that vulnerable state for less time, so you're less likely to get hit with that second hit, because the quicker you finish the animation, the quicker the healers. So that's what it shouldn't be, but it is.
It's not a valuable enough skill, because you only have a certain number of decoration slots to fill. You don't want to fill it with quick sheath or speed eating.
You don't want to.
I never ran with quick sheath or speed eating.
I did. Not when I played as a bow, but when I was playing as my horn and I was playing support, I ran it. I ran the whole thing. I went quick sheath free and speed eating free because I needed to put my weapon away and pop a heal that would heal everyone else.
Okay, so it does depend on the weapon type then. All right, fair enough. But still,
it depends on if you're playing support. Yeah, if you're not playing support and you're playing by yourself, I kind of agree. You probably don't take it over other things.
Yeah. But yeah, and anyway, the radial interaction system and things like that really do need a whole reworking, and hopefully in Wilds they will resolve that. And another thing which did my head in was that I felt the grind with this one, and I didn't feel it at all with Monster Hunter World.
Why do you think that is?
I don't know. I'm still trying to find answers for that. I just probably because I went through it the base game a lot quicker than you did. You and Alan took your time. I should probably mention that I joined the game very late, and I steamed through the base game to Sunbreak.
Me and Alan played it as a co-op game, and that took us a lot longer, whereas you sped through it so you could join us in a DLC. I did help you through the majority of it when I was learning. That's where I spent most of the time learning how to play the horn in the first place. So I played alongside you and just played songs for you. And I say that maybe is why you did get burnt out faster than me or Alan did, I suppose, because we did have a 6-month gap in between Rise and Sunbreak, whereas you did it all in one go. Also, compared to World, you said you didn't want to play another weapon. In World, I'd say you were 50-50 with the glaive. You started off playing the glaive, then you went to dual blades. I think you ended up preferring dual blades, and you stuck with dual blades. But in your time in World, you did freshen it up a bit more for yourself, because you did really go with 2 different weapons, because you put a lot of time into the glaive and dual blades. Whereas on this one, you were dual blades from the start, and I think that also probably helped with your burnout, in my opinion. So you add those things up.
I also think, I mean, I agree with you, but there's other aspects to it as well, which is I think that the playing as the insect glaive is not as powerful in Rise as it was in World. In World, you felt a lot, stronger. In this title, you get knocked back a lot easier, and which
True.
is annoying. And I think that kind of put me off playing as the glaive. It's just like, no, they need to go back to the drawing board with that one.
Again, Pete, ever so quickly, in Rise, they did not knock you out of the air that much. In Sunbreak, because people complained. They did.
Okay.
People complained, not about the glaive. People complained. The complaint was. Obviously, this is before me and you played it. So this is while it was on the Switch. The complaint was the wire bug, which I suppose we'll get onto in a minute. The wire bug and those wire bug mechanics, because of the extra mobility they gave, that people said, the expert players, not the casual players, were the monsters are not good enough at tracking you because of the wire bugs. So the Capcom took the feedback and then they made every monster, as we joked around when we were playing, they made every monster fucking snipers.
Yeah.
Where
they went to sniper school.
They went to sniper school where they could spot you out of the air, no matter what angle you were coming in from. They knock you out of the air. I even got some funny capture near the end of our playtime with Magnamello literally grabbing me out of midair with his mouth and pinning me down in from midair, which was one of the most crazy things I've ever seen in my life. But that happened, and that's what they do.
Yeah. So another thing is basically the monster hitboxes. Now, Capcom, for crying out loud, if you're going to do a game like this, then please sort the fucking hitboxes. The collision boxes are absolutely atrocious. And because the monsters move so fast, the collision boxes sometimes take a second or two to catch up. So if I'm behind the monster attacking, and I'm literally touching his leg whilst I'm attacking him, and he decides to do a leap away from me, I get caught up in that, which is utterly bullshit. All right.
Yeah.
It's really annoying. And if he decides to do like a sort of a spin sweep, and I'm at a certain distance away from him and nothing's touching me, like his physical model hasn't touched me, but his collision box does, that's annoying as well. Sort that fucking shit out, because if it's all down to precision, it's all down to the microsecond of getting things right and the iframes, you can't afford to have dodgy collision boxes. And with things like monsters like Magnamello, the fact that they move so quickly, it's just that the collision boxes are too big. It's like the tails are like twice as big as their actual tails, and that's annoying. That needs to be sorted out. There's also, I felt, not enough monsters. I know Monster Hunter World had a whole ton of them. I just don't think that there was enough monsters in this one.
I think the roster of Rise and later Sunbreak was worse than World. I think there was too many monsters who were too similar in Rise. There's way too many of these bloody wyverns, right? I love me a wyvern, right? I love me a dragon, a wyvern. I do. That's what Rathlos is there for. But they released, there's so many, so much so is that I forgot some of their names because they were also, some of them are so similar to me. That it took me a long time. I've played it enough now where now I know the differences between them. But to start with, I was just like, well, which one's that again? Which one's that again? Because so many of them are so similar to me. It took my mind a long time to actually register the differences between them because they moved a lot of the same ways. Yeah, they had slightly different attacks, but the variety was not good enough. There was not enough of those of other kind of monsters. And there was too many of certain types, in my opinion.
To be fair to them, they did introduce crabs, which I enjoyed.
I enjoyed the crabs because we hadn't seen that. Apparently, Pete, those monsters had been around They're not new to the series. They were in older titles.
Okay, well,
But
they're new to us.
They're new to us because there was none of those types in World. Yeah, so the two crabs were new. And I suppose you could say that the kind of upside down dragons, the kind of hovering, large.
Oh no, we're in Ibushi. Yeah.
Yeah, they were new. They were okay. They weren't the worst offenders to me and what I hated. I'm going to get to something that I think you agree with me. You may not quite hate it as much as me,
Go
but
on.
I hated the fact that past a certain level, especially in Sunbreak, so this didn't really occur in Rise as much, but in Sunbreak, once you got to a certain part of the game, the difficulty ramped up in one way and one way only: speed. All they ended up doing was making the monsters faster and faster and faster and faster and faster, to the point where one monster in particular, the Violet Mizumi, whatever it's called, right, would literally, you know the one I'm on about, don't you?
Yeah.
Would literally speed around the map at such speeds and never stay put for a sec that it was just, I found it absolutely ridiculous. And I just found it absolutely ridiculous. And so much so that if you were one of the slower weapons, you just couldn't catch them.
Yeah, at this point, it is literally just like waiting for a monster to chill the fuck out so that you can run up to it and give it,
And
a belting.
I've heard people who have criticised Sunbreak in particular who prefer a world, and I think won't spoil it for you, but I'm leaning towards that as well. One of their main criticisms has been, and I agree totally, was that sometimes the monsters just go on this mad rage mode. They go to this mad rage mode where they just zip around the map at such speed, and that some of the people have said you might as well just go away for 5 minutes and come back.
Yeah, you might as well just sit down and make yourself a cup of tea.
Go away for 5. Go somewhere the monster can't get you. So go up to one of the high platforms, one of the high mountains, right, where the monsters can't follow, right, and then just sit there and wait a couple of minutes until the monster just stops doing it.
Yeah,
and then go back down, then fight him. Now that's a problem with your game.
What's the solution though? That's the thing, right?
The solution is different mechanics, mate. The solution is that Capcom have just. And I understand to a certain degree, because I remember saying to you in the Monster Hunter World review that we did 6 months ago, or whatever it was, a while ago, that the difficulty of the monsters was generally in two things: speed and aggression, and that the monsters that were slower and less aggressive were always the easier ones. And Capcom have realised this. They've realised this, and that's why in Sunbreak, all they did is make them all of them faster and more aggressive. Yeah. And that was it. And I understand for some monsters, right? But not all of them. And I just really think that they got a little bit lazy when it came to coming up with ways to make the monsters harder. Not always speed. It's not always speed. Don't have them all jetting across the side of the maps and doing all their animations faster and faster. Dude, I fought a Baroth. One of the last things I did in the game before we stopped playing, I fought a Baroth, an afflicted Baroth, who's like level 120 or something. And he was more or less doing the same moves a normal Baroth would do, but he was doing them 5 times faster.
Yeah.
And that's it. That's what I mean by laziness, because that's all they've done. All they've done is just made all the monsters' animations faster, so they get to the point where you're going to need fighter pilot reflexes to dodge as it gets worse and worse. But there's nothing else. They've just made, rather than adding in more interesting mechanics or something like that. And I get it's not an easy thing to do, but that's why the game balance, that's why these guys are paid a lot of money to kind of come up with this stuff, rather than just, no, we're just going to make them faster. We'll just make them faster, make them zip across the map, make them do the animations so fast that the players struggle to dodge. And for me, mate, I just got fed up with it. I just thought, nah, this is just making it faster, man.
Well, look, to be fair, they did, as the monsters got harder, they did add different moves to the monsters, which is absolutely brilliant. That is genius. Continue doing that. A low-level monster in comparison with a high rank monster, in comparison with a master rank monster, have different move sets.
I don't mind new
was
moves. Yeah,
genius idea, right? But the AI of the monsters is too sharp. We need the AI needs looking at with these monsters, because they don't act like monsters. They just act like death machines. And at these upper levels, I'm not feeling the battle. I mean, I'm scared. I mean, especially when it came to Primordial Malzeno, I was scared. It's just like, if this guy fucking hits me, then we're both fucked. The defense rating just didn't matter with him. So yeah, I mean, like the monsters need a lot more work, and they need reviewing. They need to be unique enough. They need to have sort of. They all need to have a certain gimmick, and they just didn't.
Do you think it's a lack of creativity? Do you think it was a lack of creativity then?
It was. It feels like to me like it was an asset flip to get out as soon as possible for the Chinese market, so they could make a bit more cash for Wilds. That's they made some tweaks, they made some changes, but that's what it feels like to me. There weren't enough armor types either. I mean, there was a lot. Don't get me wrong, but there was
a lot of bad armor pieces as well, dude. There's that too. Yeah, there was like one or two sets which most players looks at and like, yeah, we're gonna have to have that. And then there's like 80% of the armor sets were just like
completely useless.
They were okay for like one build, right? There was like one build or maybe one weapon that they'd be okay for, but then the other 13 weapons would be like, nah. Like there might be one set which is good for like a gun lance, or one set that's good for like a sword and shield or something, and then the other 13 weapons would be like, no. I mean that build that's not going to work with my weapon, is it?
There were too many armor sets that were dedicated to the bowguns. I constantly saw heavy bowgun related skills like ammo up and
yeah.
Like all this kind of shit. It's just like,
there's
I'm not
a lot of ammo up.
fucking interested in ammo up. Stop putting a useless skill in with a decent skill. That's what really got my gears. So yeah, there wasn't enough armor types for my build style. And I felt like it needed to be more balanced out, and I just felt like it was too geared towards projectile weapons. Another thing which really, really grinded my gears, and I kept telling you to turn the fucker off, was the NPCs. Right, they were so annoying. They were way too cliched. And the one character in particular was the fucking Smithy, and her voice, her accent.
I left it on for you, dude. Every time she was in, I put the volume up just so you could hear her.
I know you did, yeah. And it just really wound me up. And yeah, so please don't use her again, because she's really annoying. I'm sure she's suitable for some things, but that was just, oh my God. And the fact that every time you clicked on an NPC, they'd always bow. It's just like, fuck off. And they were just way too sort of like cookie cutter characters. The plot line itself is just total trash as well.
I'm not being funny, but the plot line in the 2 Monster Hunter games we've played, the plot line's more or less exactly the same. Yes, there's tiny little differences, but it's oh no, new monsters appeared. Oh, the monster's acting weird. I wonder what the reason is. Oh, it's because of the influence of the next monster. Oh, hold on a sec. No, it's not the next monster. Somebody's actually influencing that monster.
Yeah.
Oh no, it's not. It's not that monster. That monster's been influenced by that monster. And in this one, they went even further. This monster, oh, we thought he was evil all along. No, he's not evil all along. He's the big good guy. He's been trying to help us the whole time. That's why he attacked us. That's why he attacked us on sight every time that we see him.
Oh no, we're the bad guys, Nick. Right? Don't you understand that? It's just like, whoa, dude, really? Now I feel shit. It's just like, well,
when they pulled that one, I was just like, nah,
mate,
nah. He's not a good guy.
whatever.
He's not a good guy. He's never acted like a good guy. He's a violent piece of crap, right? Who's one of the harder monsters in the game, by the way. This so-called good guy is actually one of the hardest monsters and aggressive monsters in the game.
Yeah.
But
It's
no,
our fault.
it's our fault. Yeah, he was just protecting himself, and he was trying to save everybody, Pete. Apparently.
So why did he attack us on sight? Why didn't he just sort of ignore us until we start, like with Kirin, right? If that's the case.
Exactly. I believe if they would have told me that Kirin was a good monster, I would have believed that 100% because he's the only passive monster.
Totally.
I would have believed that.
Yeah. Not enough of that. And yeah, also with regards to the NPCs, none of them fucking do anything, right? You walk up to them and it's just like, oh, do this for me with you, will you? Cheers, thanks. You know that fucker that sits at the table and does nothing but eat dango all the time. You have to do a quest for him, right? And he just blatantly says to you, without any shame or anything like that, he goes, "Will you do this for me? I'm busy eating dango." I'm like, dude, that's all you've done. I'm surprised you're not the size of a tank right now.
He should be like 50 stone, bruv, and he's not.
Yeah, that really annoyed me. What I would have liked is when I go out onto a quest, maybe see them around fighting a different monster than the monster you have to fight. Maybe see them running around collecting things, actually doing stuff, rather than just standing there in one spot. And you know.
Well, you say that, and that actually does lead on to something. How did you feel about the follower quests?
I liked them. I just did them too late, and there wasn't enough. There wasn't enough incentive for me to do them until I remembered them and thought, oh fuck, I might as well do them. And I did the majority of them. I didn't do all of them.
No.
But I did like them, but I felt like they should have been part of the main sort of
storyline
rather than them being bundled as a side quest, basically.
Would you want to see that return, or do you think nah?
Oh, totally, yeah. As a sort of a way of like, if you don't have any mates or to play with online, then you can use NPCs. I thought that was a great idea, and they do help.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah, having the twins go as hunting horns was just great.
Buff you up, yeah, it's good.
Yeah. So yeah, a lot more work needs to be done on the NPCs. Something else. This is a long fucking list, man. But there's something else though, which really, really just fucks me off, is that there's not enough info on things like skills. So like when you go to the description of it, it'll be like, oh, sometimes triggers. I mean, well, what do you mean? What do you mean? Like latent power? Oh, when certain conditions are met, this will trigger. It's like, well, what do you mean? Elaborate.
You got to go to the wiki. I can tell you what they are, but I only know because I looked at the wiki. There's no way of finding out without it.
Have the fucking wiki in the game. Seriously, Capcom, come on, man. So yeah, I mean, like that's sort of everything that's on my list.
The thing that's weird about that is that some of the skills are very specific, and some of them aren't. Like when you're building affinity, it tells you exactly what the percentage is. If for example you were building critical eye and it says slightly increases affinity, then you'd be pissed off. But in them, it says no, it's 5%, and then it goes up to 10 and 15, 20. So you're given the exact numbers. But for some reason, in some skills, and only some, where there is numbers behind them, the game just does not tell you the numbers. For some of them. Some of them it does, and some of them it just chooses not to. It just, like with the aggressor skill, it tells you whenever the monster becomes enraged, you get a +3 attack and +5% affinity. I don't know why in skills like latent power, and there's other skills that are like it, I don't know why it does not give you specific descriptions, because there are numbers behind it. It's based upon how long you've been in a fight, and then the other trigger for latent power is after you've taken X amount of damage. So there's two
Yeah.
ways it can trigger. It triggers either after you've taken like 200 damage or something, or after it's like 2 or 3 minutes of fighting. Problem with that is, of course, is that the monsters normally only hang around for 5 minutes or so max before they fly off somewhere, and then
Oh God, yeah. Oh
so
God, yet another thing that really just bothers me. I don't mind them doing that, but don't do it all the time. Like there was, I don't know which monster it was. I think it was anyway, one of the dragons, I think, that just like literally every 5 minutes he'd fuck off to another part of the map. And it's just like, fuck you, because I've just finished buffing myself up again. And now I've got to fucking do it all again when I get to the
the
other
reason
point.
behind it is meant to be I think, so that you're you're given a chance to rebuff yourself, and then you're given a chance to run along the map and pick up materials to help you, like, you know, pick up bugs, wildlife stuff to help you do certain things, and then picking up stuff like that. That's the idea behind it, I
No,
think.
that's fine, but have that for the low rank and the high rank. So when it comes to master rank, they don't go anywhere. Maybe like they move to another position once, right? But they're literally, they want you dead in master rank. So how about they just sort of like literally it's just fucking beeline for you all the time in master rank.
Well, that's why when a lot of the later missions, a lot of them do take place in this arena, and sometimes it's like, thank God.
Yeah.
thank thank God. Thank you get all the bugs as well. And actually, speaking of bugs, the spirit bugs, the way that they kind of
Perma buffs and stuff, right?
yeah. So in World, of course, health boost was nearly a must for most characters, unless you were one of these super players who never gets hit. Then I guess you didn't have to take it. But most of us normal humans, normally we would take 3 levels of health boost, and that would almost be mandatory for most fights, especially the harder monsters.
Yeah.
In this, there is no such thing. The good thing is, of course, is that it gives you 3 extra slots to play with, because in World, to get 3 levels of health boost, normally you had to fill up 3 level 1 slots with the health boost. So in this game, I suppose you can say that you're given slightly more slots to play with, because you haven't got to worry about that. You just need to collect the bugs. The problem is that it's really boring.
Yeah. Yeah. I think they missed something there. I mean, like, it was kind of a good idea, but I don't know. Yeah, running around for like 5-10 minutes initially is just like especially if you're trying to farm a monster for a certain part and you've got to do it again and again and again. It's a bit tiresome. Yeah, I agree there. But then again, what's the solution? Do they go back to having the health boost? I say yes.
Yeah, I think I agree with you. I don't really want to run around chasing bugs, to be honest with you, mate. It's not something that I want to do. I didn't mind doing it at the start, because at the start, right, it's okay at the start because you're exploring the map anyway.
Yeah,
You're going to be picking up resources that you need. But as you go further and further, you've seen the maps that as you get to late in the game, you've seen the maps. Chances are you've got most of the resources you need, right?
yeah,
Unless you're a bit of a hoarder, which I am. So maybe for me, you know, but most you know, and you've seen everything really. You just want to get to the monster, because chances are you're fighting the same monster, as you've just said. Chances are you're fighting the same monster again and again, because you want to get his 3% drop, which is how it went, and you want to do it as efficiently as possible. So you don't want to have to run around getting all these bugs every time. It just padded the fights out.
you know, if you've killed one of the monsters in a map, then they should appear as an arena quest. Not all of them did, which, you know, whatever. Okay, so, you know, overall, we're going to give 2 ratings here. So we're going to give the base game a rating. We're going to give the DLC a rating.
It's going to
as
be a
well.
little bit harder for you, Pete, to give a rating on Rise, because you smashed through it so fast, and it's probably much harder for you to see it as a separate game. Whereas me and Alan, like I say, we played it just without the expansion, and then played the expansion 6 months later. So it's easy for me to see them as separate
Yeah.
games.
But we're going with Angry Joe's rating system, where we're not saying that anything below 5 to a certain degree is rubbish. We're saying that if we give something a 5, it's average, right? That doesn't mean it's shit. If it's at like 2 or 1, then yeah, it's rubbish. But if we give something like a sort of a 3 or a 4, then we're not specifically saying it's diabolical. We're saying that it's below average and it needs a lot of improvement. We're not saying we hate it, basically. So yeah, with that in mind, I'm just going to go ahead and give the base rating of the base game. I'm going to give it a 4.
Okay.
There's a lot that needs to be improved on it. I did find it easy, but then again, that was probably down to my skill inherently, or the actual weapon type I played with, being dual blades. I don't know what it is. The location, the setting really annoyed me. I felt like bitch slapping everyone that bowed to me. I was just getting really annoyed.
Yeah, the location was better in the DLC. The location was better in the DLC. That's one thing it was.
But all the niggling things that we spoke about with regards to the NPCs, just sort of like standing there not doing anything, and that creepy guy that fat guy that was sitting on top of that whatever it was just creepy as fuck. So yeah, that it gets a 4 from me.
Lower than I expected, Peter, but that's fine.
But
Okay.
it was fun. It was a fun game, but it's slightly below average for me.
Okay. I enjoyed the base game more than Sunbreak. I felt the monsters more balanced. I felt the game was easier than Sunbreak was. I felt the DLC was much harder. I felt that every monster was on crack, whereas that wasn't the case in Rise. In Rise, I still think there was a decent balance, and that the faster monsters were just that faster, but not all the monsters were.
Yeah.
In Sunbreak, I found that every monster was just lightning speed. I'm going to go with. I'm going to go for 7 for Monster Hunter, the base game. I'm going to go for 7. I
Okay.
enjoyed it with Alan. We played. It was a co-op game. But the reason why I'm not going higher than a 7, it didn't hook me. The end game of base Rise is virtually non-existent, to be honest. So that once me and Alan killed the last monster, neither one of us touched it again until the DLC came out. So there was absolutely no, it didn't hold either our attention after we finished it, which for a Monster Hunter game is a little bit surprising. And I suppose Sunbreak actually did have an end game. It was a massive grind, as you've said, but it actually did offer an end game when Rise actually, for me, didn't offer much of an end game at all.
You felt like it just abruptly stopped.
We finished it. We had a good time. We finished it. We killed the last monster. None of the monsters was that hard, at least not to the akin of some I found in Sunbreak. But there was nothing that really, I mean, there was an event. There was some event quest we could have done, but neither one of us felt like, okay, we've that's it. We've done it, and we moved on. It didn't hold us in. So I'll go for 7 because I did enjoy my time with it, but it didn't have the longevity of a Monster Hunter World, like you said. I mean, we spent hundreds and hundreds of hours in World. I didn't spend hundreds of hours in Rise. So
yeah, okay, that's fair enough. Moving on to the DLC Sunbreak. My rating is going to be, I think it's probably going to be a 7. The reason why it's not an 8 or a 6 is well, the reason why it's not an 8 is because there were quite a few things which were irksome, and the reason why it's not 6 is because I felt like it was a better hub, and
it was, yeah.
I felt like the monsters. Now this is just me going with the weapon style that I was playing with. I felt like it was a proper challenge for me. Finally, I felt Rise was the base one was just too easy. I was speeding through it all. I was just twatting all the monsters. I was like, all right, okay, next. I didn't feel any challenge with the base game. I did feel a lot of a challenge with the DLC, and I enjoyed it. I do agree with you that towards the end game of that, they got way too stupidly fast, and I felt like that they were running out of ideas by that point. The reason why it isn't higher again is because they introduced certain mechanics way too late in the game. So the whole curio crafting was way too late. The whole the high level talisman farming was just like, are you fucking kidding me? I've gone through all of that, and now you introduce this
That was
Aurora talisman farming.
Yeah, and it was stupidly OP'd as well. What I mean is like the jump in power was literally the biggest jump in power in both games combined. The jump in power, you got the kind of the talisman difference in power between what you could get before that and what you could get after was so silly that you would never bother doing any of the old stuff again.
And also the fact that you couldn't use previous melding materials in that level was annoying as well. I mean, have introduced them, but have them as a lower point.
And there was nothing to do with all the old monster materials as well, because you couldn't use them. You could only use them in the lesser melding as well, which you didn't bother with. So it's like you'd end up with like 50 or so monster parts that you're never going to use. Nothing you can do. I mean, yeah, you can sell them, but that's a bit dull, isn't it? I mean, you just sell them.
You don't get much for them anyway. So the fact that I felt like we had to start again with all of that just was annoying. The research thing was good, but again, it was way too late in the game.
Inferior to World, mate. Though I prefer the investigations in World were a lot more fun.
Yeah, and that character Bahari was just fucking annoying, and his attitude was just like, whatever, dude. It's the fact that we don't see these NPCs fucking doing anything was just really annoying to me as well. Anyway, so yeah. The DLC gets a 7 from me because it was a big improvement for me.
Complete opposite to me, Pete.
I thought so.
Sunbreak gets a 5 out of 10. I won't put it below 5 because I was still able to finish it, but I found myself getting much angrier than I ever did in World. I mean, I had my moments in World. Don't get me wrong. There were a couple of monsters in World who did bring that aggression and frustration out of me. But I was overall nowhere near as frustrated in World as I was in Sunbreak, and the frustration is slowly built up as the monsters was getting faster and faster and faster. And I accept that this is maybe just how I play games in general. I am a slow player. In all my games, I'm quite a slow player. So the faster the games generally get, games in general, the more I tend to dislike them.
Right.
And one of the arguments going around and why a lot of people do prefer World is because of the pacing of the battles. And what I believe happened, I do agree with you that in Rise it was probably too easy. This is where finding that balance is bloody difficult. I agree. It was too easy in Rise.
Yeah.
But I think they went too far in one direction with Sunbreak. They got anal about this speed stuff. Way too anal, and rather than trying to be creative in coming up with different ways to increase difficulty, they just said 10% faster, 20% faster, 30% faster, 40% faster, 50%, and then it got to a point where some of the monsters was absurd.
Yeah.
So for me, I think they lost their way, and I hope that when Wild comes out, they go back to a more deliberately paced style in what Worlds had, and that they do not continue this more arcadey style. And that's the best way I guess I can describe it. It's more arcadey style. I personally don't want that. So,
well, the fact that it is going to be developed for the Western market again. So this is a title that's going to be for sort of orientated towards us as opposed to.
It's going to be Xbox and PlayStation again, isn't it? I doubt this one's coming out on Nintendo. So,
well, it might do after a while. Who knows?
Maybe.
But I mean, like I am looking forward to it, and I hope they resolve some of the issues that we spoke about. So we'll just have to wait and see.
I just want it to be less arcadey. If I personally struggle with the more arcadey stuff, so of course I'm not going to enjoy it as much. And Sunbreak for me is a 5 out of 10 because it went too far in the arcadey too fast for me.
Yeah, I need bigger maps. I need bigger regions.
Yeah.
Like World had. I loved exploring all of that. I just felt like the maps in Rise was way too small. But whatever, it's down to the limitations of the Switch, Right. Well, I welcome everyone who has played Rise and World to leave comments and a discussion and all that kind of thing. We would love to talk with you about it and stuff. So don't forget to subscribe and slap the notification bell and tickle the thumbs up, all that good stuff. And we'll see you on our next episode. So take care, everyone.
Yeah, take care.